Hello, this is Michael McCarthy, and in this video we're going to take a look at some of the new features and functionality that we've added to the newest release of Zookeeper. I'm just going to press H to bring up Zookeeper. What you'll see is we've worked on objects and layers in order to try and speed up workflow and productivity based on a lot of user feedback. The other thing that we've worked on is state sets, which is a new paradigm of working in 3ds Max. The first thing we focused on was object and layer functionality to speed up workflow and usability. With a long list like this and many objects in the scene, it's sometimes difficult to see what you have selected, what you've selected maybe in the max scene. If I click on an object here, one thing that we've added is an auto scroll ability so that pretty much whatever you select in the viewport, you'll see in your Zookeeper window. The other thing that we added is the ability to auto open different hierarchies and select those objects, and the ability to remember what state those hierarchies were in before. So if that hierarchy was expanded, then it will stay expanded. If it was collapsed, like this one was, when I select another object, it'll go back to being collapsed. That way we don't get huge flat windows. We did actually add the ability to flatten out your hierarchies if need be, so that you can see all the objects in the views. Another thing that's been improved is the speed and functionality of seeing all these objects at one time with multiple views. So you can kind of drag all these out and see all these objects here in your rollouts. If I do that, you can see whenever I have an object selected up here or in the viewport, I'm also going to be able to see where that object lives on what particular layer, because that layer will become highlighted. So if I go into any of these chair layers, you'll see it highlighted down in the layers panel. Another feature that we added due to user request was just double clicking on layers so that you can select those objects in the scene, and you should be able to see them update up here wherever they happen to be. Let me just shrink this back down. Sometimes objects can become difficult to find here, so we've sped up the filter in which you can type in things like floor, and that type of thing will happen. And you can also do this, of course, for your layers views. So if I just type in Omni, we'll see where those Omni lights are, and they'll come up selected, as well as what layer they are in will be kind of grayed out there so it doesn't get in your way. One other thing that we've added to group layers is a non-destructive way of filtering. So this is something that Zookeeper had before, but we've improved the way that it works. If we add a group here, and I'm just going to call that group furniture, and select all the different pieces of furniture that we have in the scene and bring it into our group. An important part about working with groups is that you work in a nonlinear or non-destructive manner. So if, for instance, we wanted this sofa to be in box mode, then it certainly could be. And if we wanted to have our entire layer be in box mode, then we could do that. But if we want that to persist when we go back to turn off box mode for that layer, you can see our sofa layer still has its own properties. So those things don't get overwritten, which is really important for your workflow if you have things set up and working globally. Things like we could freeze the sofa and the table, and we could freeze the entire group, and when we unfreeze the entire group, those things would still stay frozen. So this is a much more intuitive way of working. So these are a couple of small things that we've added to improve the workflow and usability when you're dealing with a lot of different objects in your scene and you're using this type of layout every day, all day. The other thing that we added, because Zookeeper has many different layouts, I'll use it like this very frequently for every scene that I start up, and then sometimes I go into schematic views and other views. Our little reset layouts to the general view so that we have something that looks like this. Reset our layouts to objects and layers, which is kind of something like we just had. We can reset the layout to objects in a schematic view, which will bring something up like that. So just little quick presets that you can jump between different ways that you might work into Zookeeper. And you can see that one we have here is our scene objects and state sets, which will bring us into using our state sets. State sets is a way to manage many different objects, properties, views, and even render elements in 3ds Max. We found that it has definite global use and implications. There are three different areas that I think it targets very well right now. One is just property and view adjustment. Whenever you're working in 3ds Max, you may be dealing with lights or backgrounds or certain objects, and you may want to adjust those things. So to do that with state sets, we can just kind of click on record and it starts to record things that we might set. So I'm going to go in and just set some different things. So maybe in this set I'm dealing with a lot of stuff in the background and I'm just going to freeze all of these objects in the foreground here, and I actually don't want to see my lights and cameras, and I'm going to be dealing with this background stuff here. Another thing I might want to do is actually set up a view that is more conducive to me working here. So I'm actually going to go in here and I'm going to say configure, and I'm going to configure a slightly different layout. So I don't know, maybe the large view over here on the right would be good with my camera view, and I'll pick that there. I'm just going to press H to hide that. Another thing I might want to do is take any one of these and change its shading level. So if this one I wanted it to be smooth highlights, I can do that. So if I just go back into Zookeeper and stop recording, we'll have this state set saved. And you can see you get a little hierarchy here, and it lets us know what kind of properties we saved, what kind of viewport changes were saved, and I can back out of this just by turning off that layer, and that brings us back to our general everyday scene. And if I need to go back into this and I want to work this way, I can just click on that and all my properties and view setups are saved here, which is really pretty useful. So what I might do is I'm just going to call this BG for background state, and I'm going to create a new one. I'll back out of this and just create a new state that I might work with lights or something like that. For a light set, I might go in and work with these layers, and of course I would like the lights and the cameras to be visible, and I think some of this stuff I would still have frozen, and I would probably freeze maybe everything else and just have those lights available for me to adjust. And I'll go and make kind of a different configuration too, just for the fun of it, maybe something like that. And this view can be camera 1 and this view can be camera 2, and I'll say OK, and that'll save my cameras, and then I can set this view to smooth highlights with edge faces, and I'll just press H to hide that quick. And this view, I'll just have be regular smooth highlights so I can kind of see what's going on here. And I will stop recording, and then you can see I can back out of this. It'll go back to the default setup, and when I come back here I have that, or when I click on there I have that set up, and I can go back to what I was using as the default. So I can make many different sets of the way that I might want to work in 3ds Max for different parts of my production. Another great way to work with state sets is to set up different camera and rendering setups. Frequently I'll have 3